You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello and welcome back to the Soulforge podcast. You're about to dive into episode 260.
Welcome to the Soulforge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Sean Vanderloo, as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soulforge.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm your host Sean, and it's been about 2 weeks since I recorded an episode. And here we are again with some excitement and adventure for your listening pleasure. The bulk of this episode is going to be taken up with the recent visit I had with my son Bishop. But first of all, I want to know how everybody's doing. Has it been a long summer? It really hasn't. It feels like the summer has just flown by. It's already the last half of August. I don't know where the time has gone. As you know, I moved from Timmins back to my hometown of Sault Ste. Marie at the beginning of April. And as I'm recording this, it's almost been a whole 5 months that I've been here now. And that seems kind of crazy to me. And I'm having a little bit of a hard time believing that it's just flown by like that. Mentally, I am in the best position I think that I've ever been, whether that is because I got the hell out of Timmins, or if it's because, oh, that's a bug that I just killed that was crawling on me, gross. The pills that the doctor put me on for my seasonal depression or my regular depression or whatever it was that I had. I don't know. Actually, I spoke to him the other day, and he said what we need to do is come up with a plan to start getting me off of the pills. And I'm like, well, that's all of a sudden. I only started in February. And he says, well, that's true, but we don't want to make you super dependent on them, and we'll talk about weaning you off. So we need to come up with a plan. And so I suggested, well, how about after the winter season is over in the spring, once the seasonal depression season is over, then we can start talking about that. And he says, that's great. That's a good way to come up with a plan, because as you may or may not know, apparently every winter I get friggin' miserable. And this last winter that just passed was the worst winter I'd ever experienced. Never felt so depressed. Didn't even realize how depressed I was until, well, I came for a visit to the Sioux in February and then put in my transfer to move back home that I'd wanted to do for 19 years. So anyway, that's the story. Lots of this has been talked about on other episodes, but if you're new to the show, that's the basic gist of the thing. Lived in Timmins for 19 years, wanted to come home the entire time. Got so bad in my depression that I decided to do it, and I was super afraid, and I let fear control me my entire life, and I said, screw that. And now I'm here, back in Sault Ste. Marie, where I was born and raised, and living in my brother's spare room. So there we go. That's pretty good. So what's been happening? Well, at the beginning of August, my son Bishop decided that it was time to come for a visit, because we'd been talking about it for quite a while since I left in April. All kinds of things were happening in his life. Nothing major, but his aunt from out of town was coming to visit, and he had this thing that he had to do and another thing. And so finally we decided, the beginning of August, I was going to go get him. So I went on the civic holiday weekend, picked him up, spent the weekend actually there, visited some friends that I hadn't seen in obviously 4 months, and picked him up and came back on the Sunday. And it was planned to have him here with me for 2 weeks. He had so much fun, he extended it by a week, which was awesome. We had a great time. And I figured the best way to go about it was just to let him have the most fun that he could possibly have. I wasn't going to say no to too many things that he wanted to do, and I was, of course, going to be the dad, but I was also going to be fun and just let him have a great time. You know, he's 16 and a half, and adulthood is coming up soon. And we had all kinds of talks and all kinds of good stuff. But before we get into that, let's play a promo for another podcast right here on the ESO Network.
It was the dawn of another podcast. The Epsilon 3 is a dream given form. It's a home away from home for three guys to watch a 90s sci-fi classic TV show. Three guys with microphones over 3,249 miles apart, all alone in the night. The year is 2021. The name of the station is Babylon 5. The name of the podcast is the Epsilon 3. Veer, bring me a drink.
Oh, right. Wasn't that a great friggin' promo? Oh, I love that show. So anyway, the best part I could get out of him, he's not much of a talker, but we had some pretty good talks. But one of the favorite things that he got to do was spend time with his cousin Trinity, who is my youngest brother Robin's daughter. And they're, 3 months apart. Actually, the three of us brothers, me, Sean, Curtis, and Robin, have a bunch of random kids, but the three of them are all within 3 months of each other. So my brother Curtis's son Nate was born in November, Bishop was born in December, and Robin's daughter Trinity was born the following February. So 3 months of each other, and they all hung out, I think, twice. But for whatever reason, Nate is not really part of the dynamic, which is similar to how Robin and I have a different relationship than Curtis. Curtis is different and doesn't share the same dynamic as me and Robin, and me and Robin's kid, Bishop and Trinity, well, they have the same dynamic as me and Robin do. I hope that made sense. Bishop, who does not like to walk anywhere, walked pretty much every day from Curtis's house to Trinity's house, which is about 5 blocks away. It doesn't sound like a lot, but for a kid who doesn't walk anywhere and has been homeschooled for the last 2 years because of COVID, he is not a walker, and he did. That's how much he loves hanging out with his cousin Trinity. And we did a bunch of stuff. We went to the park. We had ice cream. What else did we do? We went to Whitefish Island, which is basically a little place just beside the Soo Locks. So if you know anything about Sault Ste. Marie, you know that we're a lock city where the big ships come and all that stuff. And so there's a little island and there's nature trails. And Trinity is a ringleader. Bishop is more of a follower. So everywhere we went, we made sure that Trinity was with us because it got Bishop out of his shell. And we went to Whitefish Island, walked around all the nature trails. They actually went in the water. It's not really a swimming place. It's more like rapids and stuff. But they went up to their knees and they had fun. Bishop got to feed a chipmunk and touch a chipmunk for the very first time because they were all over the trail. They're very tame, I guess, because of all the people that feed them. But he was super excited, so that was awesome. Another time, we took him to see my father, and we had a fire and made sure that Trinity was with us because, now, here's the thing. Robin has a different dad, so Trinity is not the grandchild of my father like Bishop is, but whatever, it doesn't matter. We had a fire, we had some wiener roasts and some marshmallow roasts, but Bishop and Trinity spent most of the time filling water bottles up with rocks and throwing them back and forth at each other. That was their thing. So if Trinity had not been with us, Bishop would have just been miserable. So there you go. But yeah, they had fun. They did a little bit of roasting, and it was all good. Yeah, like I said, we went to the park, we went to the locks, we went here and there, we went for ice cream several times. Just little mini adventures. Did we go to the beach? We were going to go to the beach, but that didn't end up happening, I think. Yeah, no, that wasn't the thing. But in the midst of all that fun, I wanted to make sure that I did have some serious chats with my son Bishop about the future, about life and everything and all that good stuff. But before I get into that conversation, I've got another ad to play, and this is kind of different. It's nothing to do with ESO Network. What happened was a lady named Sadie reached out to me over the email systems, and we've decided to do a promo swap. So I am going to read her script to you now, and it's basically an Overtired podcast. If you know anything about Overtired, you know it's a podcast that covers an eclectic range of topics in the most real, raw way possible. Christina Warren, Brett Terpstra, and Jeff Servans-Gunsel chat weekly about tech, TV and movies, ADHD and mental health, and, now and then, Taylor Swift, for some reason. Overtired has you covered on tech and programming, mental health check-ins and tips, and great apps for iOS, Mac, and Windows, among other things. Follow their personal life journey and get great advice and recommendations on tech, mental health, movies, TV, and tons more from these wizards of the internet. If you add any new podcasts to your must-listen list, this is it. Find Overtired wherever you listen to podcasts, or at overtiredpod.com. So check that out. I've listened to a few of their episodes, and they have a real fun dynamic, so maybe check that out. Tell your friends, and all that kind of good stuff. Back to the conversations that Bishop and I have had. He's not much of a talker to adults, I guess, as I found out over the 3 weeks that he was here. He likes to spend the middle of the night chatting with his, what he calls, American friends that he hasn't actually met in real life. So somehow, one of his friends hooked him up with this group chat or something. I don't know what it is exactly. I tried to find out, but that wasn't too easy. But he spends all hours of the night on some kind of app talking to people from all over the world, I guess. And he is so animated and articulate. I couldn't believe it. Like when he talks to me or people that he knows around here, he's just kind of monotone and one-word answers, but he's talking to these people on the phone, and he's laughing and he's carrying on, and he's just having a blast, which is nice to see, of course, but just so unusual because, well, I didn't realize that that was part of his life. One of the days that he was here, he was just playing on his phone like he does. And so I started a serious conversation with him, and it wasn't really good because he was still playing on his phone. So I said, "Hey, bud, why don't you turn that off and come over here and let's have a chat?" We must have talked for about an hour or so, all about what he wants to do with his life and that kind of stuff. And one of the main things that we learned this year is that he does not wish to become an adult, because when he looks around, all the adults he knows are miserable. Because they have to work and they have to pay bills and nobody's really happy. So we talked about that, and what he was going to do was fail all of his classes so that he could stay a kid forever. But I informed him that whether you fail or not, your age keeps creeping up. So eventually you're going to be 18 years old. You're going to be an adult whether you like it or not, and you're going to have to figure out something to do. So we talked about what he wants to do when he gets older. I said, do you want to live in your mom's basement forever? He's like, no, I don't. Do you want to live in Timmins forever? Oh, God, no. There's nothing to do in Timmins. I don't like it there. So he's of the same opinion as me. So I said, okay, well, that's two things that we have to figure out then. So adulthood, that's hard to say. Adulthood is coming whether you like it or not. So let's set you up for success. Let's finish your high school. Let's get you your grade 12 diploma so you at least have a base of operations, like a foundation of some kind. Because if you don't have an education, you can't even get a crappy job. And I said, your mom's been working at the call center for 20 years. Is that something that you want to do? No. I said, do you want to be a mailman? He said, no. And I said, exactly. So what you need to do is finish your school, and then you can figure it out from there. Whether you just get a job, whether you go to college, whether you go to university, whether you go teaching English overseas or something. You need to figure it out. But first, you need a base to have that foundation. So we decided that, yes, he's going to finish his high school, and then he's either going to move here to the Sioux with me, he's going to stay in Timmins and figure out something there, or he's going to go somewhere and go to college or university or whatever. But he now knows that he just can't live in the basement forever. And I said, so, do you want to get married? Do you want a boyfriend? Do you want a girlfriend? He's like, well, I don't really know about that. All I know is that I don't want to live by myself. I'm like, okay, there we go. That's a good thing to know. So whether you get a roommate or a partner, you just don't want to live by yourself, and you don't want to live in mom's basement. And he's like, exactly. So we had all kinds of talks like that. So living situations, what he's going to do with his life, he still doesn't know. In fact, I'm going to be, 46 next week, and I still don't know what I want to do with my life. But he's decided that, yes, he's going to finish high school, so he at least has his grade 12, and he won't be struggling because he doesn't have an education. So I think it penetrated his consciousness, and we've got a bit of a plan. He's going to finish his schooling, and we're going to go from there. And I said, yeah, once you have that, then you can have fun. You don't have to be a miserable adult. You can do all kinds of things. There's so many opportunities in life. You'll figure it out, and it'll be great. That's where we stand now. As we were getting ready to bring him back home, he said, I wish I could stay longer. And I'm like, you do? He's like, yeah. And I said, well, you wanted to come for 2 weeks and you stayed for 3. Now you want to stay more? Do you want to stay here forever? He's like, well, maybe, but I kind of miss my friends. I'm like, okay. Well, since I'm just living in a spare room in my brother's house, now is not a good time for you to move here. You don't want to just sleep on a mattress in my room. He's like, no, that's true. I'm like, so why don't you go back to Timmins, get your education. I'm going to get my life on track, and by next year I should have a place to live or something, and then we can figure it out from there. And he's like, Dad, that's a great idea. And so I brought him back to Timmins last weekend, and he got to play on his computer with all his friends, and he was super happy about that. He had a great time. I don't know how many times during those 3 weeks he told me that he loved me. That's one thing he's not embarrassed about at the age of 16 and a half. He's very free with the I love yous, so that was nice. And it was a great visit all the way around. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened in the last few weeks since we spoke, since the last episode. What's new with you guys and girls out there in podcast land? I'd love to hear from you. soulforgepodcast@gmail.com. Is there anything else new and exciting happening? Not really. It's been super humid as of late. I've got birthday coming up on the long weekend in September. That's pretty good. Yeah, because I guess if you don't have a birthday, then you're not around, and that's not good at all. Other than that, we're going to have some more exciting content for you in the near future. Amanda is coming back from her trip up north, probably in a week or so. She might be back. I know that Krista wants to come back, and who knows who might be the next guest on the Soul Forge podcast. So I want you all to take care of yourselves and each other. Leave a 5-star review on the podcatcher of your choice. Tell everybody about the Soul Forge podcast. And until next time, remember, you can't compete with me. I want you to win too. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Soul Forge podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we hope you'll tune in again next time. Remember that you can visit soulforgepodcast.com for all of our social media links, and don't forget to share the show with everyone you know. The Soul Forge podcast is your best source for living your best life.
Think about it.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping for the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.